Good morning. It's Friday, September 12th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So some takeaways from yesterday here. We saw silver advance while gold was a bit lower. The ETFs, they were selling gold. They were buying silver, platinum, and palladium. Now, at the same time, the Dow Jones Industrial Average cost 46,000 for the first time ever, gaining 1.4% yesterday and marking its fourth record close of the year. Under normal circumstances, the August reading of the CPI would have got more news for the day here. However, headline inflation, it rose at just 2.9%, slightly higher than the 2.7%, but was in line with the expectations. Yes, inflation is rising, but the acceleration is more gradual, and the long-term inflation expectations, well, they remain well anchored. More important, the numbers keep the Federal Reserve on track to deliver that interest rate cut next week at its policy meeting. What fueled the rally across many of the big indices and other outside commodities out there was the weekly jobless claims data, which saw a number of Americans filing for unemployment, and it hit the highest level since October 2021. The spillover was felt in many different markets, with silver ripping through $43 overnight. Where's the next stop on that? Well, we've been discussing for weeks now that the $42 to $44, once we get that close over 42, like what we saw yesterday, and then we get the continuation buying, we tend to trade in this consolidation range, which was seen back in 2011. Now, many of you working closely with myself and the team have also been positioning for this breakout with silver along with the small caps. And well, now many analysts out there expect small caps to outperform over the next 12 months with a potential for a 20% advancement in things like the Russell 2000 compared to just an 11% jump in the S&P 500. Now, if you'd like to learn more about building a portfolio and working with us over at Blue Line Futures, please reach out to info@bluelinefutures.com. So checking in on your setup on the precious metals and the U.S. equity markets, well, we do have the Mag 7 here just slightly higher in the pre-market trading, while European stocks, they were subdued. And we saw Asian stocks, they continue to rise, driven by technology shares and expectations that the Federal Reserve will cut rates next week. The MSCI index has now been up for 7 consecutive days here, marking its longest winning streak since May 2024. And the regional benchmark here is currently just below its all-time highs. So many of you that are bears on U.S. equity markets need to look across the ponds, where realistically the bearish market sentiment here is over in Europe, as that rising euro currency weighs in on corporate profits, weighs in on exports here, and hits more European stocks. Now, looking at the previous day's sectors in the U.S., that's one gauge that I look at here to get that type of sentiment here. Where are we at? Still bullish here in the markets, with 10 out of the 11 sectors here still crossing higher and in the green on yesterday's trading session. Today, we'll see that University of Michigan consumer sentiment, and looking at the CME's Fed Watch tool, well, you have a 92% chance of a 25 basis point interest rate cut, an 8% chance of a 50 basis point cut. You go over to the poly market, the gambling markets here, it's an 87.5% chance of a 25 basis point cut and an 11% chance of a 50 basis point. So both of these different metrics are both in line with expectations. You got the 10-year yields sitting at 4.3%. Many of you working closely, we're looking at some put options on the Treasury yields here as a potential hedge, and we could see that yields are holding higher here given the market and all this information that has come out recently. Now, gold heading for its fourth weekly gain on expectations that the Federal Reserve will cut those interest rates, and then silver futures seeing that 41.15 to 20 level here as another big lower high on the chart, holding the blue line support levels as outlined in the chart pack. You get the cryptocurrencies. You look at Bitcoin crossing over 116. That was your pivot point here, just backing off below that, and Ether holding a key level of support. Now, the exchange-traded funds, they did cut about 23,000 troy ounces of gold in the previous session here. Total gold holdings, though, are up about 13% this year, up at 94.6 million ounces, and gold is up about 38% this year here, and it fell back just by about 0.2% yesterday as that rotation took place into things like palladium, platinum, and the silver market. And palladium holdings, well, those continued to increase here for an 8th straight day. If you got any questions on futures and option trading, please send an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. And remember that futures and option trading, well, it does involve risk of loss, and it may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.